All right, let's get real for a second. If you're just skimming the headlines and blindly consuming the daily tech hype, you are completely missing the biggest shift in mobile technology of the decade. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're putting on our tech analyst hats, we're cutting right through the noise, and we're looking at what the masses are completely ignoring about Apple's true master plan. We are not just looking at some simple software patch today, guys. We're looking at the secret architecture of Apple's next decade. So let's dive right into this by addressing the massive elephant in the room: the mainstream industry narrative. Right now, the prevailing storyline you hear everywhere is that Apple is losing the AI war. Pundits are constantly claiming they're lagging dangerously behind competitors who are, quite frankly, frantically forcing chatbots into every single app, smart appliance, and toaster they can possibly find. But the actual answer to that question? It's a resounding no. Absolutely not. Apple isn't behind. They are playing an entirely different game. While the rest of the industry is obsessed with flashy, in-your-face AI gimmicks, Apple is quietly building this invisible, hyper-stable foundation. They are playing the long game, and it's brilliant. Now, to really understand this, we have to look past the surface distractions. For instance, next week, the average user is going to be downloading iOS 26.5. And hey, it brings some nice minor updates, right? We're talking end-to-end encrypted RCS messaging in beta, suggested places in Apple Maps, a new dynamic Pride luminance wallpaper, and your routine bug fixes. It's a solid update for sure, but it is literally just the tip of the iceberg. The massive underlying structure that Apple is actually pouring its resources into right now, the thing you can't see yet, is iOS 27. As tech analysts, when we contrast the current industry approach with what's coming in iOS 27, the difference is just striking. Competitors are dealing with forced AI integration. And what's that doing? It's leading to bloated phones, totally cluttered interfaces, and this massive battery drain that leaves you frantically searching for a charger by 2 p.m. Apple's iOS 27, on the other hand, is leaning hard into system stability, completely optional AI, refined UI, and extreme energy efficiency. Apple's intense focus on stability is actually their contrarian secret weapon against this growing consumer AI fatigue. All right, let's move into Section 1, the Snow Leopard strategy, internally known as codename Rave. Internally, iOS 27 is operating under the codename Rave. And if you know your Apple history, you'll immediately recognize this as the legendary Snow Leopard strategy. That's where they hit pause on all the flashy visual changes and dedicate an entire release just to prioritizing underlying system quality and totally eliminating technical debt. So what does this massive code rewrite actually mean for you on a daily basis? Well, for battery life, they're introducing an adaptive power framework. This makes intelligent adjustments without throttling your workflow like the old low-power mode used to do. For performance, they're optimizing the Metal graphics engine to its theoretical limits. That means your phone feels lightning fast, and those annoying little microstutters you get while scrolling, completely gone. They're also reducing the actual storage footprint of the OS itself while speeding up file indexing. And finally, for UI usability, they're addressing complaints about text clarity from the previous liquid glass design by introducing a brand new glass effect slider, giving you total control over transparency. And guys, this isn't just speculation. Top insider reporting from Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg confirms that Apple's directive is to literally comb through the operating systems to identify bloat and fix deep-seated bugs. They are relentlessly targeting technical debt to make the iPhone as reliable as a Swiss watch. Moving on to Section 2, bring your own AI. Let's talk about decentralizing Apple intelligence. So what about the AI? This brings us to a massive paradigm shift. Apple is doing the exact opposite of locking you into their own proprietary ecosystem. They are decentralizing Apple Intelligence, and they're doing it through the new extensions framework. Think of this exactly like picking a default web browser or a default email app for your daily tasks. It's a deep system-level architecture that lets you seamlessly designate your preferred third-party AI services on demand. Let's map out exactly what choices you're going to have here. For your system-wide writing tools, you aren't stuck with just ChatGPT anymore. You can actually set Anthropic's Claude or Google's Gemini as your default provider. The exact same thing goes for image generation. But check this out. Here is the most clever safety feature. Siri will use distinct AI voices for third-party models. So if you ask a really complex question and Gemini takes over to answer it, it will literally sound like a completely different person than Siri. You will always know exactly who is talking to you and where that information is coming from. That is a massive win for user transparency and safety. Now, for those of you who just want your phone to be a phone, taking back control is incredibly simple. How do you disable all of this? Step 1, open your Settings app.
Step 2, navigate to the new Extensions menu. Step 3, just toggle it to off. That is it. Boom. Done. If you want a distraction-free device without some AI agent reading over your shoulder constantly, iOS 27 fully respects that. You can entirely opt out with zero hassle.
Now, that's not to say the core apps aren't getting smarter. They are, but again, the AI stays completely out of your way. The Wallet app gets this awesome Create a Pass feature that turns literally any random QR code into a native digital wallet card. Photos gets generative extend and reframe for your spatial photos, whether it's the calendar proactively checking traffic to tell you exactly when you need to leave for the airport, or health pulling advanced biometrics using the new C2 modem. It all just runs quietly in the background without constantly nagging you. Which brings us to Section 3, the hardware horizon, the real reason for this overhaul. So here is the crucial point to all of this. Why is Apple doing this massive, fundamental software overhaul right now? It isn't just for the sake of having clean code. It's to connect all this hyper-stable software directly to the radical hardware they are secretly preparing to launch. Take a look at Apple's 3-year reinvention plan. We already saw the incredibly thin iPhone Air in September 2025, but this September, in 2026, we are expecting the iPhone Fold, featuring a massive 7.8-inch inner display. And in 2027, the 20th anniversary device, codenamed Glasswing. iOS 27 absolutely must happen right now, because bloated, messy code simply will not run on what is coming next. Let me give you an example. iOS 27 includes App Continuity 2.0 and Smart Split Screen. It is the very first Apple system engineered specifically from the ground up for a foldable phone. Think about it. When you open up that 7.8-inch inner display, the software has to instantaneously transition from a phone layout to a tablet layout, tile in your apps perfectly side by side without a single microstutter. You literally cannot do that on bloated legacy code. It would be a mess. Finally, let's look at Section 4, the invisible future. Welcome to Project Glasswing. Let's fast forward and see how this all builds toward the ultimate endpoint of Apple's strategy. Everything points to September 2027, Project Glasswing, the rumored 20th anniversary device. And the specs we are seeing leaking from the supply chain, they are wild. We're talking a bezel-less, wrap-around waterfall display, a completely buttonless design utilizing solid-state haptic controls. It literally requires an ultra-low-powered chip just to handle off-state interactions. And this right here is exactly why iOS 27 is stripping away the bloat. The software is preparing to literally replace physical buttons. And if you want hard, undeniable proof that this is happening, you just have to look at the developer guidelines for the liquid glass interface. Veteran developers notice this massive insider clue secretly embedded right in the design code. It explicitly states, you never want a control or container that touches the edge of the screen. Now, why on earth would Apple mandate that interfaces stay away from the edge of a flat screen? Because they are actively preparing developers right now for screens that wrap entirely around the physical edge of the phone. It's hiding in plain sight. So look, iOS 27 is not a boring update, not even close. It is the bridge between the smartphone as we've known it for 20 years and the immersive, agentic, invisible computing platforms of the 2030s. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. If you are still just consuming the surface-level tech hype, you're already behind. By stabilizing the foundation today, Apple is actively preparing to completely change the hardware tomorrow. So, are you ready for the post-smartphone era?